I'm going to give it an A+ across the board. We came off all the way from 10 picks and ended up with 11 players and a second or third round next year. That's pretty tough to do on a normal year for any team. And I think we made more game-changing acquisitions than any other individual team in the NFL this year.
Are you listening?
Niners!
Damn.
Rondo Sports here, representing the Niner Empire organization worldwide, which means there's a chapter near you. You need to find out about it and become a part of the organization. Just go to theninerempire.com. Get all the details and information. Hey, do not be surprised at any of the activities or news that's coming out of Santa Clara. Jed York hired John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan to do a job, and they're going to get it done. John said 13, the lucky 13, get the hell out. You know what's really funny, because the day before that, John had just signed a couple of new players, and I was watching The Wire because I'm always watching the activities going on all hours of the day and night. Anytime I look at the phone, what's that? 2 more players. I'm thinking to myself, John, where are you going to put all these players? Ooh, did that question get answered? Booyah! Get out! Just like that. What is the name, though, that jumped off the page? The name that everybody said, oh no. Yeah. Eric Rodgers. We didn't get a chance to see him perform. I know, I wanted to see him. I wanted to check him out. I wondered what he looked like. He's a long, tall receiver, 6'3". We didn't get one in the draft. I'm thinking maybe, who knows, he could be the next Julio. You know what we got to stop doing, though? Stop calling people the next Julio. There's not going to be another Julio. Julio's come along every few years, but we don't have one. There wasn't one in the draft. I like Corey Davis. I like Mike Williams. I doubt that they're Julio. So, there you go. You know, I got to figure what happened. He called, John, or it's probably Kyle. Kyle calls in Eric Rodgers. Eric, because they're probably curious as we are. Eric, let's get a workout in and let's check you out and see where you are. You know, the ACL thing, right? So they call Eric in, and the knee's probably not fully functional, right? After a year, that knee is probably still not going to let him be Eric Rodgers. So they're looking at him, and they don't have time. They see that he's not performing up to a level where he probably could, or certainly not satisfactory. So they put his name down on the list. Oh man, he's got to go. There he is. We don't get a chance to see Eric Rodgers. You know, and this just goes to show. Now, remember last year, we lost Eric Rodgers. Chip Kelly, right? He's got Eric Rodgers, and they should have started. When I think back on this, it should have been Eric Rodgers, Smelter, and also Ellington. Those should have been our 3 starters last year. I mean, it was in my mind, that was the way it was set. All 3 of them. Smelter with his hamstrings, Rodgers with his knee, and of course, Bruce Ellington being Bruce Ellington. They got him returning kicks. Why, I don't know. Bruce Ellington, he comes back downfield. Ow, my leg! And like always he does. So I said, oh man. So now Chip's got nobody. Because Trent Baalke's got no receivers for him. He's got that stuff that we had the year before. He brought it all back. None of them. Chip looks at him and said, all of y'all, get out. And who do we have to start the season now? We've got QP. That's it. That's all. Now the 49ers have to go out and hustle up a couple of more receivers. Luckily, New York City gives us Jeremy Kearney. Yeah! We don't know anything about Jeremy Kearney, but we're glad we got somebody. Also, Rod Streeter out of Kansas City. Okay, 6'2". Oh yeah. But they're fresh new. They don't know anything about the playbook. They haven't been working out with us. What are we going to do with these guys? Kearney, luckily, he learns fast. Boom! He fits in. He understands Kelly's football. Streeter takes a little longer. So, our receiving core for how many games? First 3-4 games? It's Jeremy Kearney, Quentin Patton, and Vance McDonald. That's all we got. That's all we got. So you see, this is why, you know what? Enough of last year's misery, pain, doom, and gloom. What am I doing? We are moving on. Levi Stadium is sprinkling glitters coming down from the heavens. The fans are getting ready to come out and cheer and scream. We are a new team. Did you check out though? When I say new team, I tell you, I'm looking at the draft picks. Let's talk about that later, because if I get started, I'm delighted. But the undrafted free agents, you check that out? Do you realize we are number 2, only behind the Patriots? You get the connection? Patriots, San Francisco. Later it's gonna be San Francisco, Patriots. Super Bowl equates San Francisco, Patriots. I'm serious. UDFA, so. You know, there's gonna be some changes from here too. There's still nobody on that roster is safe. There's a handful of guys that don't need to worry, but there's most of them they do. Cole Hikutini. Listen, I'm telling you right now, get the film, check these guys out, and be thrilled. Cole Hikutini, tight end, Louisville. Blake Bell, Garrett Selleck. You've been served notice. Your time is running out unless you get ready to bust ass very soon, right? Victor Bolden, wide receiver, Oregon State. This dude is fast. Hey, Bruce Ellington, right? Because I figured Bruce, I don't want to hate on Bruce, but I know what Bruce is going to do. Bruce is going to come down, oh, my leg. All right, you know what? Get his stuff, give him his stuff. All right, Bruce, go ahead, man. Limp on in there, man. They got your papers, release papers, sign that stuff, and stop in the office and get rid of that. And Bruce, you have a good life, all right? I tell you, this guy takes over, man. That's it. That is it. Victor Bolden takes over, and he's quick, he's fast, he's a good return man. He could be on special teams. Nick Mullins, quarterback of Southern Miss. I didn't say anything, but I figured Kyle probably had something to do with him being on the team. Now remember, this is the second best list of UDFAs out there, so he must have something, right? KD Cannon. Somebody told me, go check out KD Cannon. I watched KD Cannon for about 45 minutes. This is the highest paid. This is the highest paid free agent available, and I see why. Ooh, yeah, I can't wait to see what happens in the camp. Lorenzo Jerome, he's a safety. St. Francis, people are raving about him as well. We need a single high safety. I don't know if he's a single high safety or is he a box safety, but somebody needs to back up Jimmy Ward. He may even challenge, I doubt it, because we need to stop thinking Jimmy Ward is so easy to beat out. Stop thinking, yeah, that's not gonna happen, right? Matt Breida, running back, Georgia Southern. You know what? Looking at Matt Breida, Joe Williams. You know what? I ain't gonna say nothing else. I'm gonna leave it right there because I ain't gonna bother nobody now. Kendrick Bourne, wide receiver, Eastern Washington. I was crying about no offensive weapon. We got several. And the way these guys develop players, I'm thinking, you know, hey, if nothing else, this season is gonna be entertaining. Guarantee you that right now. You know what I'm saying? Keep an eye on the 49ers.
Orlando!
Yeah,
Can you see that?
What?
I told you about Solomon Thomas.
Oh, man.
You look like a fool. Shout out to my dudes. Trez, Rich, Joe, Sly McFly, Sohel, Zach, Solomon Gang, bruh. Game recognized game, Rombo. And I'm gone.
He game recognized game. Wasn't he talking about Malik Hooker a little while ago? He was, wasn't he? He was all.
That's bullshit, Rombo.
That is not. He was coming in and talking about Hooker gang, baby. Jumping around, he was telling everybody, just talking major poo-poo, running in a jack. And now all of a sudden he's Solomon Gang. Later for him. Let me offer my public apology right now for Solomon Thomas. I told people, I've been telling people for ever since the draft, hey, I'm singing the song. I'm gonna get a recording and put it up now. Rombo Sports apologizes for having not respected Solomon Thomas and not picking him in the draft. And if you know the whole story, I'm not gonna give you the whole story. We were lucky to get Solomon Thomas. All right, listen. I like Solomon Thomas. I went and looked at a whole lot of film with Solomon Thomas. I even like his mom cracks me up. Solomon Thomas to me is a good ball player. I watched his motor, his skills. The boy is an asset. I like him, okay? And especially after his mom told that story. You know, when they was preteens, Solomon apparently used to tackle people too hard, right? All the kids, Hey, Solomon, would you please not tackle me? I thought that was hilarious. So Mom says, so what Solomon did is he would go out and tackle the boys. He'd pick them up and he would lay them down gently. From that point on, I was in love with Solomon Thomas and his family. Solomon was so strong and he's such a nice guy. He wouldn't hurt him. He'd just catch him, pick him up, and lay him down gently. Solomon, you ain't got to lay nobody down gently in NFL. You knock them down as hard as you want to. I got a special guest I'm watching the ring today. His name is Jonah Burrows. He writes for the Niner. Well, tell you what, let him introduce himself right now. Let's go to Jonah. Niner fam, in the aftermath of one of the greatest, I was gonna say one of the greatest drafts that we've seen in years, but Jonah Burrows of Niner Noise is here to join me to give some of his expertise. So I will leave my biases out and allow Jonah to give you a grade. Jonah, hello.
How you doing there, Ronbo? Happy to join you tonight.
Hey, appreciate you having you too. Jonah, everything about the 49ers, I mean, even the last 2 years, I'm always the guy, we're going to be tough. We're going to the playoffs. I'm the idiot that keeps going on and on. I get overly enthusiastic. This year, I could be right. Jonah, what are your grades on that, what I call a magnificent draft? Notice I'm still bugging it with my opinion. Jonah, what is your feeling on this year's draft?
Well, in all honesty, and this isn't just because I'm a huge fan, I'm comparing it to all of the drafts of the years past and the last, I'm going to say 5 years. This is an A+ across the board. And you know, that's taken into consideration a little bit of the questionable picks, especially with the quarterbacks, but that's all Kyle Shanahan's magic there that we got to rely on. Yeah. And I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on that. And I think there's a lot more to the story than anybody's going to know as far as other teams that might have been interested in that young man. I'm going to give it an A+ across the board. We came off all the way from 10 picks and ended up with 11 players and a second to third round next year. That's pretty tough to do on a normal year for any team. And I think we made more game-changing acquisitions than any other individual team in the NFL this year.
And you know, that leads me to my next question too. I was impressed by a lot of the picks, and the first and second picks, of course, were. There's nobody that's not going to say those were magnificent picks, but
it was Christmas.
Oh, it was. It was like I was my pajamas and everything. I felt like it was that morning, right? I'm thinking though, with all those great players, and I'm looking now from first round to seventh round, you know, we've had players down through the years that have been questionable, and we wish we had upgrades. Now, with your own personal assessment, do you see guys that may be on the bubble? And you got rid of a lot of guys already. Are they going to be ushering out a few more guys? Because the culture change is now in full swing, and some of those losers from that bad culture could be on their way out. Do you see any of those guys on the bubble that are currently on the roster?
Without a doubt. I mean, you got to look. We brought in 21 players in free agency, and then we had an 11-player draft counting the Bibbs pickup with the trade with Denver. We brought in quite a few undrafted free agents here. There's going to be a lot of movement in the roster that's left over from last year. That's without a doubt. I think there's some undoubtable releases that are happening, but there's also some training camp decisions that are going to be made based on this character and grit and fight that they're putting together with this team, and the personality, the identity of this team. If they're not going to buy into it, a lot of it's going to happen is in spring training. They're going to see that, and some of these roster holdovers from last year are going to get a reality check at that point. When you look at the roster as a whole, where a lot of the fat is, I see wide receiver. Before the draft, we had 11 wide receivers on the roster. We brought in 5 receivers in free agency. We brought in a total of 9 receiving threats in free agency just in the first 2 weeks. That's counting the two halfbacks and Harrauer that we brought in, Juszczyk, the fullback that I wanted to consider him a receiving threat.
True.
And the tight end from
Atlanta,
from Washington. The
Washington, right? Yeah, he's from Washington, right?
Yeah. Well, he was with Washington. He was actually with the Bears last year.
Was he that big blocking tight end, right?
Yeah. His name is sorry here. He's mostly a blocking tight end. He had some good red zone catches and a little bit of yardage picked up in the couple of years that he was with Shanahan in Washington. It's Logan Paulson. He spent last year with the Bears primarily as a blocking tight end, but when you look at what we did in that we are looking for those types of full toolbox tight ends, the guys that can block on running plays, they can move around in that outside zone running scheme, and can also be a red zone threat in short yardage. Logan Paulson was an interesting pickup in free agency, and it was that was a 100% Kyle Shanahan pickup there. When you look at the tight ends we had on the roster prior to everything that went down in free agency and the draft from last year, with McDonald and Selleck and some other guys, we've always kind of been fairly deep at tight end, but we didn't have any standouts. One of the things that happened last year at tight end, with Chip Kelly running the zone blocking scheme and doing a lot of running out of it, was we saw a lot of the outside zone runs kind of not being as good as they could have. When all things were considered last year, we had the 4th-ranked running offense in the league. But 1/3 of that, over 32% of it, was gained by quarterbacks. Was gained by Gabbert and Cap. And neither one of those quarterbacks are with us, so you're going to see a big dip off there. I think the tight ends that we had on the roster, especially McDonald, he's a fast tight end. He's a decent receiver, but his blocking in open space and on that outside zone, I think, left a lot to be desired. And I think was brought in for that reason. And I think the pickup to me, he was the best overall tight end in the draft. And I think he's in the toolbox. He's a crescent wrench. He can do a little bit of everything.
I like that. And I got to remember to use that myself. Use him as he was a crescent wrench. You mentioned Vance McDonald, and I'm one of the few people I know, other than Vance's mom maybe, that thought he improved dramatically this last year and a half. But then the 49ers shocked me, and I heard news that they were trying to dangle him as a trade chip. I said, what? I said, do you think that was mainly because Trent left him with that albatross contract? Or did it have a lot to do with Vance's playing style? You just mentioned some of it, though. What do you think that was about?
I think it was a mix of a couple of things. Number one, as you saw in the press conference with Kyle Shanahan at the end of the draft, they asked him specifically about that. And he was very open. Him and John Lynch both decided before they took the job and they spoke about this in the press conference, they wanted to be open with players if they were going to put them on the block. And he was. And what he said specifically was that there was some interest from other teams. Now, we don't have any information as what that interest was. We look at everything that all 7 rounds of the draft, there was 2 players that were actually traded, that were existing players on team in the draft. One of them was Capri Bibbs and was part of one of our trades. The other one was with the Patriots, James O'Shaughnessy from the Chiefs to the Patriots. And that happened around the same time that the Vance McDonald discussion was coming up. So there's a very good likelihood that they might have got a call about Vance McDonald. I could see Vance McDonald being a piece in a Patriots offense that they might have been interested in. They could have got value. I'm not sure. I mean, the Patriots actually had some pretty good cap room this year, all things considered. And that's a pretty good organization over there. That's a good business they're running over there. But they might have made a call or two about McDonald, considering that Balky saddled us with
5 years.
5 year.
It was 5.
4 years, like $7 million a year. And when you $8 million of that is guaranteed. And when you look at his production in 4 years, he had 64 receptions for 866 yards and 7 touchdowns. Now, that's $7 million a year and $16 million guaranteed, $35 million overall. That's the type of production you want to see in 1 year from a tight end on that type of contract. Yeah. So I think it was kind of like the perfect storm, and he was a candidate. I think maybe Maroth might have had a little bit to do with that.
You think so?
He might have had something. Maybe. I was actually surprised to actually see that signing take place before Balky left last year, especially with Parag Maroth so deeply ingrained into the front office up there. And he's quite a numbers guy. He's a shrewd negotiator. But it happened, and we got saddled with that contract. Now, I'm not knocking Vance McDonald at all. I think that he had a lot that he was contending with last year as far as pass production. The run blocking, I think, is his biggest weakness. As a receiver, I think he could excel in Kyle Shanahan's offense. But when it comes to the numbers and the interest from other teams, and I don't think Kyle Shanahan was making that. He comes to me as a pretty straightforward, honest guy. I think if they said they got some interest from other teams, they did, and that might be the one player that they got some interest from.
You know what? Let me. You know what? I got a feeling, and I saw this, and I said to myself, "Oh my God, Jimmy Ward." Remember before? I think it was 2 weeks ago. About 2 weeks ago, they wouldn't pick up his option. They didn't want it. Lynch gave one of his famous Lynch answers where he evaded the question to some degree. And then today we hear, after the draft is over, and I have a feeling, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this. Were they looking for a safety and hoping they could find a single high safety so they could actually maybe move Jimmy or do something crazy, or maybe he could have been one of the guys that you're talking about as far as teams showing other interest in? They may have been quietly trying to shop Jimmy too.
I think that the approach that they took with the draft, especially in the secondary, was a wait and see type of approach. And I think that both of them coming in and the entire front office and coaching staff coming in, basically having just 2 days of field work of tape to look at Jimmy Ward at safety at all. You know, he's primarily played nickel with the Niners. It's hard to let me put it to you this way. I think everything was described perfectly by Kyle Shanahan on how he projects players and how he values players. He watches tape. And when you look at Jimmy Ward and what he's done with the 49ers, there's not a lot of tape at either one of the starting cornerback positions or the free safety.
True.
So he doesn't have a lot to go off of. So I think that they were really kind of holding back and making an evaluation with that until they get more information. Now, as the draft played out, they looked at their board, they made their picks. I think they addressed the safety position a little more than people realize with their 7th-round pick.
Was it 7th-round pick, Colbert?
Yeah, Colbert. I think Colbert might actually end up being a decent backup at either position. Yeah. He's got the speed and the hitting power and the cover. He doesn't have experience starting in college, but his athletic ability and how they valued him, I think that was actually a pretty good steal. I think he's going to be a Swiss Army knife in that deep field, that deep secondary that they're going to be able to plug in a lot. And on that subject, one of the signings that we made with the undrafted free agents was very impressive, and I think speaks to the potential of addressing that as well, is the young man, it's Mr. Jerome.
Because I've not looked through all those guys yet. What's his name?
Lorenzo Jerome.
I did see him.
Out of St. Francis.
Right.
If you look at this young man, I think he was probably the most coveted undrafted free agent. I think we got the #1 pick in undrafted free agency. He was ranked 100 on Mike Mayock's top 100 list going into the draft. He was in the top 100. He fell off because he had a poor 40 time at the combine.
Kills somebody every year. That 40.
It kills a lot of people. I mean, he lists as a strong safety, but what they saw with him in the Senior Bowl and what I've read on him is that his instincts are off the charts. He jumps routes constantly. He's all over the place. He's not the fastest, but I think that was probably the best undrafted free agent signed by any team. And we happened to get it, and it just speaks even more to this front office and luring players to something that they want to be a part of. So I think that position overall with Jimmy Ward is kind of an open position, and they're not going to show their hands to the players in this case. They're going to leave it open. They're going to see what happens. And I like that, honestly.
I agree. That camp battle is going to be raging this year because I thought Jimmy Ward had it made. And you just pointed out a couple of players, and I looked at Colbert down there, number 7. Then I said, how in the world, and what you're also saying, it alludes to what I was thinking about this whole draft. How did we find all these gems where everybody else was missing them? Because when I look at Witherspoon, when I look at Colbert, even the tight end, Kittle, I see, I look at these guys and I say, that's interesting how he fell that far in the draft. So, yeah.
I think, honestly, after the 3rd pick, everything that happened after that was done with less analytics and more tape watching.
Yeah.
Like Shanahan said, him and that staff, they watch tapes. They're looking at guys' instincts. And that quarterback they picked at Beathard, C.J. Beathard, I spoke to you a little bit about it last night, and it was the most perplexing pick of the draft for me as it happened, when it immediately happened. And I still think to this day that they got word that Pittsburgh was keen on him
around.
too. Yeah. And when you watch his tape, you can see. I mean, he runs out of the pro-style offense, but what Kyle Shanahan likes to do, he likes to do a lot of play action. And what he said in that press conference is, it doesn't matter who he's throwing to. What matters is who is he supposed to be throwing to? Where's he supposed to be putting it? And he said, I watched tape and I see he's putting the ball where it's supposed to be. And if the offense, the receivers, and the rest of the team isn't doing what they're supposed to be, you can't go off of stats and numbers. Analytics don't match. Mm-hmm. Just like you can't grade a defensive back on analytics. You look at Sidney Jones, he didn't have the best numbers coming out of college. It's because quarterbacks weren't throwing his way because he had his man covered. That's why analytics, it's not like baseball. Yeah. And you can't apply analytics. That you can do it somewhat to quarterbacks. You can do it a lot better to like edge rushers and stuff like that. Yeah. But when it comes to cornerbacks and things of that nature, after the 3rd pick, I think that most of these picks were based off of their feeling on a player, what they saw on tape, and they didn't care about numbers. Yeah. And that quarterback and that tight end Kittle, I think, speak a lot to that.
Yeah, like the real football guys. And I was worried about that because I do believe that Trent used that a lot. You mentioned Parag. I got a feeling that's what he was doing more than he should have been doing instead of actually sitting down, watching the tape, and seeing the things that you're talking about now. And also when I was watching Beathard and Kittle, I said, if I didn't know better, I'd say that was Kyle Shanahan over there calling the plays. He's rolling out, doing play action. They're doing some of the same things that you see Matty Ice doing last year. I said, Jesus, that looks awfully familiar. Oh, now I see the connection. So, yeah, I can't wait to see the camp.
Just on that tight end, that pick of that tight end speaks a lot to what happened in this draft. George Kittle coming out of Iowa this last year, he wasn't a fancy pick. And this was one of the deepest tight end draft classes that we've ever seen. But at the same time, what the NFL's done with the tight end position in the past 10 years, they've all become hybrids. They've all become giant wide receivers. The Heath Millers of the day and things like that, those guys that do their blocking schemes, can run block and pass block, can know how to use play action, understand the offense, and can do everything that a tight end typically did as we saw growing up, is kind of going by the wayside. That the offenses are getting more pass-oriented and the tight end isn't as big of a blocker. What you get with Kittle, and there was a great article I read from Pro Football Focus that highlighted him in 2015 coming into the 2016 season. And they rated him basically as the best tight end in the nation when you look at overall production with blocking, receiving.
The entire package. Yeah.
The entire package. And that's what he is. That's why I associate him with the Crescent Wrench. He can do everything that I think Shanahan was getting out of as a hooper last year with the Atlanta Falcons that they drafted. And the production doesn't show up in the numbers, but even if you look at George Kittle's highlights, half of them are blocks.
Yeah.
You know, you don't see that with any of the other tight ends highlights. He's an all-around tight end. He blocks 30 pounds heavier than he is. And
I noticed that he does play bigger than he is. You're right.
He does, and he's got speed and hands at the same time.
Yeah.
He's an overall really good piece to the way Kyle Shanahan runs his offense. And I think it was a brilliant pick. I think that was one of the players that I think they were somewhat open about. They weren't throwing up smoke screens. Everybody knew that they liked Kittle going into this. And they visited with him. They went to his pro days. That wasn't a secret. Kittle's quarterback was. Nobody saw that coming.
No.
But I think that they both are going to do some good things in the future for the 49ers.
I do too. Zane, you know what? Because I got to check it. I love those hybrids, but if I were running things in any city where they brought those guys in, everybody would become Devin Funchess. Okay, you used to be a tight end. I didn't really appreciate your blocking. When I pulled you in here was I like the way you run routes. I love the way you gain separation. You're a complete mismatch with anybody that's guarding you. So you're now a wide receiver. I don't know if the kid's ego would be punched out or anything, but that's what I would do. But Kittle, another story. He's a traditional tight end that I can use in so many different ways. Jonah, just
to give you the proper reference on that, that was an article wrote by Josh Leiskowitz with Pro Football Focus in 2015 at the end of the year. I urge everybody to go check that out. It's a very appealing and informative piece on George Kittle, and you get a good idea of what we got there.
All right. Justin, real quickly, where do you see the potential wins this year? On the schedule, what do you see us winning and losing?
Well, that's a really good question because I mean, as opposed to last year, we had a tough schedule last year. By like a fraction of a percent tougher than the Browns. If we had lost that last Rams game,
sure,
we would have had the #1 pick because we technically had a little bit tough schedule than the Browns did. But this year, it's almost the opposite. We got a much easier schedule, and when I really break it down and I look at what they're trying to do with the personnel, and you can't really tell until the season starts and what direction they're going offensively and how they're going to put this all together. But believe it or not, and I toiled with myself because I couldn't believe this either, I have to confidently say that there's a good chance we go 500 this year, 8-8.
Yeah.
And I see us opening up 0-2.
Yeah.
I see us losing to the Panthers. I see us losing to the Seahawks. I definitely see us beating the Rams again. That was our only claim to fame last year.
Twice. That was 2 claims, yeah.
Yeah. We go to the Cardinals, and I think we're going to have trouble with the Cardinals because what Kyle Shanahan's done with this receiver core, and I wrote a lot about receivers in the Niners this year, and in my opinion, I thought after everything he brought in a lot of speed.
Yeah.
I mean, across the board, a lot of speed. I think the one thing that we're really missing on this receiver core is size and red zone threats.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of red zone threats, but he continued to bring in speed, and he did it through the draft, and he's even doing it in undrafted free agency. But one thing that the Cardinals have is speed on the defense.
Yeah, Tyrann Mathieu.
Yeah,
it's true.
They brought in Reddick. I mean, they're known for speed, just kind of like the Atlanta Falcons are in their defense. Yeah. I think that they're going to be a problem for us going forward. How they're building their defense, I think we end up splitting with them next year. I think it's going to be close. I think that's going to be a great matchup and a lot of fun to watch. So I think we lose. Plan to come back and beat them the second time.
Yeah.
I see us beating the Colts. I see us beating the Redskins, and I see us. And this is going to be my upset of the year next year. I see us beating the Cowboys. And I'll tell you what.
That would be nice.
I don't think, with everything that the Cowboys lost in their secondary last year, I don't think they're going to be able to match up with the speed that we have. I think they're going to have trouble. I think Shanahan's going to game plan against them, and he's going to see that. And what we did to load up our run defense.
Yeah.
I think
Big Vic is out of it.
We're almost aerodynamically designed to beat the Cowboys.
Yeah.
just from what I'm seeing. I think that's going to be a big upset. Nobody's going to pick it, but I'm calling it right now. We're going to beat the Cowboys next year.
Like that.
And it's going to be at home.
Yeah.
We're going to take them. I see that we're probably going to have a little trouble with the Eagles. We'll probably end up losing that game, but we're going to beat the Cardinals, and we're going to split our 2-game series with the Cardinals. We're going to lose to the Giants and the Seahawks. Following that up,
So please sweep with the Seahawks this year.
Yeah, I think we're going to lose to them both times. I don't think we're quite there
Ready
yet.
yet? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I think they match up well with us in the secondary and in the running game. Their defense is pretty serious business, and the Seahawks had a great draft. Nobody's going to see it, because they didn't actually have a first-round pick. They traded back a lot, but their first 2-3 selections in the second, third round were all just building the bench in the secondary. Yeah. They put a lot of guys on notice, Sherman and those guys. And the injury.
That's the best story of the day.
I think. Yeah, I think they actually had a really strong draft when it comes down to it. Defensive, I think they're going to be a big problem for us. We're not ready to beat them yet. I think we'll beat the Bears and Titans. I think the Titans is going to be a squeaker. Probably with the Texans too. I think both those games are going to be squeakers, but we'll probably end up coming out on the short end of the stick there. But I think we end the season with 2 wins against the Jags and the Rams. The Jags is going to be another close one, but I think that they got a lot of growing pains they're going through, and I think we're going to be better coached than them. And the Rams is just one that I cannot in any right frame of mind think of losing, especially with the whole turnover and the coaching staff and finding an identity over there. Yeah. So when you add all that up, I look at us really going 8-8.
I like that. And 500.
That's 500. When you're coming from 2-14 in one draft with a whole new coaching staff and front office, that's an incredible improvement.
Got to be grateful even now. I am too. All right. And also, John, I'm holding out that there may be, with that schedule, one upset, one team that did not pack the right lunch. And we go 9-7. This would make my year. Jonah, we got to stop right there. But listen, I tell you, that was a good time. He's Jonah Burrows of Niner Noise. You can catch all his articles. Just go to Niner Noise. You'll see Jonah Burrows there and read it. This guy's full of football knowledge. Jonah, this is part of the show where I count you down and you give me a scream out of here. All right, on a 3, 2, 1.
Go Niners!
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jonah. Jonah Burrows of Niner Noise. You can check out his articles on a constant basis. Jonah, he's like a beat writer. He's always on the 49ers all the time. Get his insights. We've been talking to Jonah probably a lot, actually, because he's got that kind of football sense. It's fun to talk about. You do, too. No, I don't mean you don't. I mean you do. I want to talk to you later, all right? Coming up this weekend, you're going to love the new Saturday evening program. We've already finished the draft, so we don't have any more red and gold GM. What we do have now, I call it 49er Forecast 2017. What does it involve? It involves you come in, you look at the schedule, you decide which games are we going to win, which games are we going to lose. You explain why we're going to win and why we're going to lose. Ultimately, as you come to the end of that, you are going to give us your forecast on the season. Because if I don't want to know just what you think, how many games we're going to win, I want you to tell me how we're going to win and why we're going to win. It may take a little while, but it could be a lot of fun. Of course, you're invited, if you're not involved, to come in, of course, and critique everybody who comes on the show like you like to do. Mean, nasty people. Oh, I tell you, you know what? I'm going to do mine too. And I'm going to do it like I want to do it. If I have a record of 14-2, I dare you to say something to me. You know I don't care. Anyway, 7 p.m. PGT. And if you'd like to be on the show, I guarantee you better contact me now. RonBoSports@gmail.com. RonBoSports@gmail.com. Just write it. Ronbo, I want to be on the new 49er Forecast 2017 show, man. I know what we're going to do this year. Do it. And I'll set you up with an appointment between now and I believe it's somewhere in May we start camp. Anyway, we'll do it up until that time. So you go ahead and contact me and I'll get back to you and schedule you up. Please hit like if you do. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. Let me not forget to tell you. This Sunday, of course, we will be getting together. Nothing's going to change as far as that. This is our time, fam. We get together every Sunday to bond and talk about what's happened to the 49ers during the course of the week. Oh, how could I forget to tell you? Yes. We'll be doing that Sunday, 7 p.m. PDT. All right. Please hit like if you do and share. subscribe, and I'll see you all over social media. My name never changes. Ronbo Sports, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Give me a holla. Like I'm gonna show you how to do a holla right now.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Say